A very good afternoon to you from the sports desk. Let's start with some rugby news now. The Springboks November campaign in the Northern Hemisphere takes them to Murrayfield this Sunday, where they will face Scotland. A tough match expected, and to help us look ahead to the game, we're joined via Zoom by Matt Proudfoot, who was part of the Boks coaching staff and also played for Scotland. Matt, a very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's only a pleasure. Thank you for having me on board.
Thank you so much for taking that time. The Boks have named their side to face Scotland. 11 changes. What stands out for you in that side?
Well, what stands out for me is that powerful bomb squad. It's probably the most powerful bomb squad I've seen. Siya Kolisi, Arthur Stamford, Peter Steph, Toy, Jasper Visser, on the bench to come on in that second half. Rossi's gone with a 7-1 again. So I'm sure that there'll be a lot of controversy in the overseas media, but it's what a powerful team that the Springboks have picked.
Is this somehow showing the intention from Rassie Erasmus as to how he's taking this match serious? I mean, look at Scotland. Yes, they played against Fiji. They were quite good, but today it's a very different kettle of fish. And smart money would be on the Springboks, but it looks like Rassie is not taking this match lightly.
No, he's not taking it lightly. If you look at the pack they've picked to start, it's unbelievable experience in the second row. Eben Etzebeth, Franco Mostert, double World Cup winning lock forwards in the centre row. Probably the two most destructive scrummages up front, Oxenchair and Bongi Manambi. Extreme power up front there. So it's a very, very powerful pack. So I expect to see them trying to squeeze the Scots in the first half. Andre Pollard, Jaden Hendricks at the halfbacks, looking to apply a lot of pressure, a lot of tactical pressure on the Scots, and then bring that bomb squad off the bench and look to blow them away in the second half. Scotland will start fast. It's what they always do, but it's whether they can maintain that speed through the back end of the second half when it gets tough. So I think they're going to start really, really well. They're confident. Their two UWC sides have been playing well. Glasgow's been playing well. They had a good game last weekend, so they'll come in with a lot of confidence. But I just don't see them holding the pressure through the second half with that bomb squad coming onto the field.
Kwena Smith is set to make his 50th appearance. How well has he done to reach this elite level of the 15s game?
Yeah, what a player. Whether you put him in the 15s or you put him in the 7s, he's just such a dynamic player who has forced himself 50 caps. He's just coming in with work rate and energy. Who would remember those 2 turnovers he made in the French and All Black games late in the second half to basically win us that final. So what a player. He will be instrumental. He will add a lot of intensity, a lot of pressure on the breakdown, looking to stifle the Scottish attack in the first half. And then with Marco van Staden next to him. So it's 2 players who play very close to the ball. So you can see the type of style Rassie wants to play in this game. But what a player Kwena is. It's going to be incredible to see him play 50th Test match. And what a beautiful stadium to play at. It's probably one of the best crowds that can support you. They tend to be quite partisan, and they'll give you a cheer. So it's going to be a fantastic experience for the young man.
Franco and Archie also, return. I mean, what will they add to the match day, particularly looking at their experience?
Yeah, so to start, they've got Eben as captaining the side, most capped Springbok of all time now, and Franco Mostert. They've played 2 World Cup finals together, 2 World Cup finals together. So the experience that those two have, knowing how to share the workload as the 2 lock forwards, and then you have the monster. The big man coming on, Arthur Stamford in the second half. He's just so powerful. The ability to break tackles and offload. We can see what he's been doing for Leinster since he's joined Leinster this season from Munster. So he's in a lot of good form. Very, very happy. I hear he's very happy with his move. He's slotted in well. Of course, he has Jock Ninoba, who's the ex-defensive coach and head coach, with him at Leinster. So I hear he's very happy. And I'm sure he'll bring that form, that energy, that dynamism of his to the Springbok side in the second half.
Eben Elizabeth starts as captain with, as you mentioned, Siya Kolisi starting from the bench. I mean, what do you make of that, Eben's leadership? And I mean, you don't really have to say much about Eben as a player, the most capped Springbok player of all time. But what does he bring to the game, particularly with the captain's armband on his shoulder?
Well, I think you'll see a lot more physicality from him. He tends to, when he gets given the responsibility, he takes that responsibility very seriously. So I think you'll see him be very, very physical. And I mean, he's Sia's best friend, So as soon as Sia gets on the field, I'm sure he'll hand that armband over to Sia and back him up as much as he can, So I think for the captain, having such a lieutenant so close to him on the field, it must be great, that leadership, how they share that leadership. So I'm sure in their hotel room this week, they would have chatted about how they're going to share that workload and what Sia expects of Eben and what Eben expects of Sia. So I think I actually think it adds depth, it adds experience to our side, sharing that responsibility. And, I'm sure we'll see a different Sia as well, because I think it will give Sia a little bit of freedom to play a little bit more. So I think it's actually a very good move.
From the Scottish side, Dassie Graham returns to the starting, and I mean, we know how offensive he can be. He's been quite fantastic. I mean, 16 tries in the last couple of games, including 3 hat-tricks, so definitely a threat. What do you make of his return, and how should the Springboks deal with him?
Well, I'm sure Gregor has shown the way he wants to play. He wants to play with speed, he wants to play with width, and he wants to bring his 2 dangerous wingers into the game, get them on the ball as much as he can. So that's given us a bit of a play sheet. For me, the line speed, the high defensive line, the contestable kicking, particularly from Pollard when he kicks cross field, is going to be a challenge. Is going to be a challenge for him. So I suspect the Springboks will pepper him a little bit with high balls, and then we'll look to get high in defence, pressurise him defensively, and see if he can handle that pressure. If you back off him and you give him some space, he's a lot like Cheslin, who can step you both sides and look to break tackles like that. But I think he hasn't faced the line speed, the physicality in defence that the Springboks will bring. So I think it's going to be a challenge for him. So we'll look to put him in a box and squeeze him, with those contestable kicks and the high line speed.
Speaking of kicking, I mean, how important do you think the kicking will be for both sides in this game?
Well, I think it's going to be a massive part of the game. If the Scots kick poorly, the South Africans have shown that with their new added weapon that they're developing in their attacking philosophy, that they will punish them. We're not sure of what the weather is like in November at Murrayfield. It tends to be quite wet and quite dreary. So if it is a wet day, the kicking will have to be very, very good. What I expect to see from Pollard is taking control of the game, using his crossfield kicks to his wingers, with the new rule interpretation where the chaser has to have access to the kicker. All of a sudden, the receivers are under much more pressure. We saw that last weekend when England pressurised the All Blacks with that same tactic. And I expect the South Africans to have watched that very carefully. And that's one of Pollard's strengths. Pollard will look to control the game. He will look to take control with something he's very, very good at, and that is kicking those cross-field contestable kicks. So I think that's what we'll see from the kicking game from the South Africans.
And I mean, from Scotland's side, in the Guinness 6-minute test, they reached like 98, 99% in terms of kicking, so definitely not a side to be taken lightly. But as we went on the conversation, where do you think the game will be won? Does it come down to set pieces, to the packs, or more about the defence in comparing the two sides?
Well, I think the Scots will definitely look to use their attack as a pressure weapon. And then how South Africa controls the defensive breakdown. We've seen that they've been a lot more aggressive attacking the board in the defensive breakdown. So that'll be a big aspect of the game for us. And if Scotland has the ability to retain quick ball, that could put us under pressure for the first 30 minutes. But then for the South Africans, I expect to see our big weapons, our scrum, our maul, and our crossfield kicking to put them under massive pressure. I think as the game progresses, the set piece will become more and more a pressure point, and we will gain more and more ascendancy through the set piece. when that bomb squad comes on and just continues building pressure, building pressure. Scots have picked a very big front row. It's probably their most experienced front row, but I think they're a little bit inexperienced with the guys coming off the bench, and I expect them to be put under pressure there. So as the game goes on, our big two set pieces, our maul and our scrum, will look to really, really pressurise them.
Are you brave enough to call it as to how big a margin will it be?
I think it's going to be a comfortable margin for the Springboks. As much as I'd like to see the Scots be really brave, you know, they like Scotland the Brave is one of their songs, and they want to be brave. They're a side that won't leave it hanging, which I think suits the Springboks. They're not a side that's going to play a tactical game against us. They're a side that's going to throw it and throw it about, and that's their advantage. So, but I just feel we're too powerful. I think the Springboks are playing well. They've shown in the Rugby Championships how well they were playing. And if you look at the form of the Sharks, of the Bulls in the URC, which a lot of these players come out of, they've come in with a lot of form into this competition. I expect us to hit the ground running, and I expect a comfortable 20-point victory for us.